All right, today we're going to break down a film review that is, well, it's pretty wild. We're talking about the 2026 version of Wuthering Heights. The review comes from a critic who, and I'm not exaggerating, expected to hate every single second of this movie. But then, something happened. He walked out completely moved. So what on earth happened? Let's dive in.
So this quote, this is literally where our reviewer's head was at after the movie ended. I mean, it's hilarious, right? It's just the perfect way to set the stage for his whole journey, from this super hardened skeptic to, well, we'll get there. But first, you gotta understand his mindset going in. To really get why this review is so shocking, we have to start with the critic himself. He didn't just walk into the theater, he walked in with a mountain of baggage and preconceived notions about this film.
I mean, look at this list. It just screams, I'm gonna hate this movie. He openly admits he can't stand romance flicks. He's never even read the book. He didn't even know the right title. And on top of all that, his whole brand is basically just complaining about stuff. So yeah, to say the odds were stacked against this film is a massive understatement. This was his take based only on the trailers. You know, he saw the corsets, the steamy looks, and he just immediately wrote it off. Actually, the only reason he even saw the movie was because he got a ticket to a free screening.
But here's where it gets interesting. Despite all that skepticism, the very first thing that started to win him over wasn't the love story. It was the pure, undeniable quality of the filmmaking. The craft was just too good for even him to ignore.
He breaks it down to three key things that started to change his mind. The absolutely stunning visuals, a modern score that somehow just worked, and knockout performances from literally everyone in the cast. These were the things that started to chip away at his cynical exterior. The way this movie tells its story with visuals is just brilliant. They use this super rich color palette to get across all the emotion and themes. You'll see like the total bleak poverty of one home contrasted with this almost heavenly, glowing palace of another. And get this, one of the characters, Edgar, is almost always in green, for envy. And he's often framed in these deep red rooms during really key moments. It's all so deliberate and just gorgeous to look at.
And then you've got the music. Our reviewer was fully prepared to hate it, especially when he saw an artist like Charli XCX on the soundtrack for a period drama. But he said it's a lot like what Baz Luhrmann did with The Great Gatsby, where you have this jarring, modern music in a historical setting, and somehow it just clicks. It creates this amazing, energetic vibe. And look, the whole cast was great, but the reviewer really wanted to single out Hong Chow, who plays the housekeeper Nellie. He says she does this incredible job of playing a character who seems all maternal and quiet on the surface, but underneath, she is just seething with this tightly controlled rage. It's a performance you just can't take your eyes off of. Okay, so even with all that technical genius, the movie wasn't perfect in his eyes. Not at all. He had two really big problems with it that he just couldn't shake. One was about the casting, and the other was about the story itself. His number one issue, the thing that bugged him the most, was casting Margot Robbie as the main character, Kathy. Now, Kathy is supposed to be a teenager for a big chunk of the story, and while he thinks Margot Robbie is a fantastic actress, he just found that age gap to be a constant distraction. And he's really clear about this. It's not a knock on her performance. He says she gives the role everything she's got. It's just a question of believability. That casting choice just made it hard for him to fully buy into the character's innocence and naivete at that age. The other huge problem, and this is a big one for anyone who loves the book, is how much the movie changes the original story. The novel is this epic, multi-generational saga that goes on long after Kathy dies. But the movie, it just chops all of that out and focuses entirely on the central love story, ending the second she dies. So this is the million-dollar question, right? You have distracting casting, and it's basically a terrible adaptation of the book. So why in the world did our romance-hating professional complainer find himself so completely wrecked by it?
It's because the emotional heart of the film was so powerful, it just completely steamrolled its own flaws. The story does something really paradoxical that sucks you in and leads to a reaction he, and probably a lot of us, never saw coming.
And this right here is the secret sauce. This movie is not afraid to make its main characters, Kathy and Heathcliff, deeply, deeply flawed people. I mean, they're selfish, they're cruel, they make horrible choices. They are not your typical heroes that you're supposed to root for. This quote just sums it all up, doesn't it? The reviewer calls them loathsome, but then in the same breath says he found himself desperately wanting them to find some kind of happiness together. The movie somehow makes you get invested in their toxic, tragic relationship, almost against your will.
And the moment that really seals the deal, the thing that broke him, comes right at the very end. Heathcliff is crying over Kathy's body, and suddenly we get this quick flashback to when they were just kids. And in that one scene, you see this pure, innocent, childlike love that's at the root of their whole twisted adult relationship. It just reframes everything you just saw.
And that was it. That was the moment the floodgates just opened. Our reviewer, the self-described least romantic human being who hates these kinds of movies, was moved to actual, real tears by characters he didn't even like, in a story he had zero connection to. Crazy is right. So how do you even score a movie like that? A film that's brilliant and powerful but also has these fundamental flaws? Well, the reviewer landed on a final score that comes with a really important footnote. He gives it a solid 8 out of 10, which, coming from him, is a shockingly high score. But it all hinges on one crucial distinction. And this is the bottom line. If you walk in expecting a faithful, page-by-page adaptation of the novel, you're going to be disappointed. On that front, it's a failure. But, and this is a big but, if you can judge it on its own terms as a standalone movie, it's a stunning, brilliant, and incredibly moving drama. He ends up recommending it, and pretty strongly too, but only to people who are just looking for a great film. A movie with beautiful performances and a story that will stick with you. You just have to let go of what you think it's supposed to be. And that's what we're left with. This whole review really makes you ask that question. Is it possible for something to be a bad adaptation, but a genuinely great movie? What do we value more, being faithful to the original book or the power of a story to just work on its own, as a film? It's a really fascinating thing to think about.